Every few mornings, somebody shouting, and they watch public execution regularly. North Koreans killing people who didn't want to join Communist Party ended up finding 4 other kids banded together like a little gangtae gang. Since 1955, Korean War movie ever made in a Hollywood studio called Pork Chop Hill. That's the only Korean War film they made, not like 태극기 to my father, Battle of Changchun-ri.
You're making a film about Korean War.
전쟁'의 아이들, in English is Children of War. Visual special effects, The Mandalorian series, trailer editor, Chinko, Minari, Past Lives, Tony Eldridge, the producer of the Equalizer franchise. It has been unbelievable the amount of talent that we've been attracting.
Arnold, please introduce yourself to our subscribers.
Yeah, hi, my name is Arnold Chun. I'm a director and actor. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. I've been working in the business of Hollywood for over 20 years now. I graduated from UC Irvine with a degree in East Asian and European history. And after that, one of my first jobs was going to Japan to teach English. I'm a father of 3. I have a 9-year-old, 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. Actually, no, last 15 years, I've been directing and focusing more on stories to advance Asian American culture, Korean American history. A lot of my work also has been dedicated to mental health, as my middle child is neurodivergent. So I've spent a lot of time advocating for mental health, pediatric mental health. And that's one of my big passions through filmmaking, is to continually share stories that have not been told, that continue to educate not only Americans, but the world about Korean American culture and society.
I mean, thank you. Thank you for doing that. I heard that you're making a film about Korean War. So could you more elaborate on what you're actually making at this moment and what are your focuses?
Yeah, we are doing a 20-minute short film, proof of concept, and the title is called 전쟁'의 아이들, which in English is Children of War. And it is inspired by my father's story growing up as an orphan during the Korean War when he was 6 years old. His older brother, my 큰아버지, was kidnapped by the Communist Army at 16 years old. And his mother went to look for him and never came back. Throughout the struggles of my 큰아버지 with, being in North Korea and forced to fight for the North Korean army, he was able to escape before the armistice. And then after almost 8 months of searching, never giving up, he found my father and re-met with him in 1954.
Oh, wow.
So my father at 6 years old was basically running around the streets of Seoul, surviving, eating garbage, eating whatever he could get from US soldiers, fighting off other orphan gangs, sleeping wherever he could. His father was killed before he was born by Japanese during Japanese occupation. So he really lost his entire family for a brief period of time. And I never really thought it was true. My dad would always talk about, 그 밥을 다 먹어. Don't eat one piece of rice right there. Don't complain. I got my first pair of shoes when I was 16 years old. Complain about waiting in line, being patient. You know where I had to sleep, what I had to go through. But when I was only 11 and 12, 13 as a young child, I couldn't understand really what that meant. I just thought he was always like guilt tripping us to make us feel bad. It wasn't until I got a lot older and more mature and then wanted to be a filmmaker that one day I actually researched and started reading about the Korean War, because when you grow up in America, you're learning American history. And in the history books, even though America was involved in the Korean War, it's only like one paragraph that they talk about the Korean War.
Yeah.
So the scope of it and the scale of it, you don't really have an ability to understand really what happened from 1950 to 1953. So as I heard my father's story, I was very lucky. My 큰아버지 and my 아빠, they were open to share about their whole journey and what happened. And the moment I heard that, it just really sparked an incredible curiosity in me to want to learn more. And then I thought, wow, I don't know how they survived. I really don't know. I just cannot understand how they were able to survive and find each other. And so I thought, that's a really compelling story about survival, hope, and faith. And so I wrote the full 2.5-hour movie 14 years ago. And, to do a movie of that scale is extremely expensive. I didn't have enough connections and people in my network to be able to make that at that time. But this past December, my brother, he asked me, whatever happened to Appa's story? I said, well, I wrote it. It was, how much would it cost to make it? I said, did you win the lottery? Like, why? But no, he just wanted to know because I think he was curious. It's like $70 million to do like a full, period piece movie, 1950 period piece movie. Then he actually encouraged me. And he said, how about if you can do like a 20-minute short version, like a proof of concept to show like Netflix or Amazon or Warner Brothers or Paramount or Universal, show this, because I've been working in Hollywood for the last 21 years. And I didn't even think about that. I think, wow, this must be like God coming in and planting an idea in my head. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe it's possible. Maybe I have to go back and look at the script and seeing. And then as I was going through the old script, I was able to find about 15, 18 pages that it could work. Going from beginning, middle, and then at the end, leaving it as a cliffhanger so the audience can, really have a curiosity of what happens next. And to be able to show the studio, if we can make it, this is an incredible story of Korean people and during Korean War that you have no idea about. Because a lot of people that I have talked to in Hollywood, a lot of them, they don't even know Korean War ever happened. They have no idea. And so that even gave me more passion of like, no, you know what? We have to teach this history. We have to, Korean fashion, Korean food, Korean music, Korean drama, everything is so popular. I think they have to understand and know, do you realize where all this came from? And so I think for just the world and regular Americans, because the history is not being taught. So as a Gyopo, I think one of our missions is to try to carry that history on and just educate and show how much of the alliance is there between Korea and America. Because for my children, I hope that my children can learn what their 할머니 and 할아버지 went through. Because when you get to understand that perspective, it allows you to have humility, gratitude, and thanksgiving, and just appreciation. And obviously, I don't want my kids ever to go through that, but I want them to understand, like, do you realize if my 큰아버지 gave up, if he just thought my younger brother's dead, I'm never going to find him. And if he gave up instead of looking, then I wouldn't be here right now talking to you, Daniel.
Yeah. I mean, you're so right. We're still actually at war. We're just signed the armistice agreement, and current status is that we're still at war. That's why all the male has to go to the military service. And myself, I was a naval officer at Korea. I spent like 3 years and 3 months battleship, try to defend the guard to South Korea from North Korea, right? So Korean War is a really huge thing in Korea, but just like you said, I think it's referred to as a forgotten war, right? How do you hope the children war will help bring more attention to the critical moment in history, particularly through the lens of orphans' experience?
Great question. Well, number one, first of all, it will be the first Korean War movie made from American perspective, being I'm Korean American. I did the research. Do you realize there has never been a Korean War movie ever made in America from a Hollywood studio since 1955. That's the last time they ever made a movie. It's called Pork Chop Hill, 1955. That's the only Korean War film they made. There was one film that came out more recently called Devotion. It was directed by Angelina Jolie. If you watch it, it's more from American pilots' perspective, not like Taegukgi, not like Ode to My Father, not like Battle of Changchangri. It's not like as intense, like the realness and the grit and the showcasing of just what the soldiers went through. And I think this film has the opportunity to open up a lot of inspiration for people to then want to, number one, learn about Korea, number two, learn about the Korean War, and then number three, probably make other stories about the Korean War from America that will also continue to expand the education of history of Korea, culture of Korea. I think Children of War, this particular one, compared to what has been done in Korea, it's only unique because it's never been done from child's perspective. And doing it from the children's perspective is obviously, as you know right now, very relatable to what children are unfortunately suffering in Gaza, Israel, over in Ukraine, and even in the past conflicts in Syria and Afghanistan. I mean, there's so many instances of how many children have unfortunately been victims of war, and they didn't have control over it. And so I think putting the film in this way, it not only helps our parents' generation to not be traumatized, but remember like, oh my goodness, I remember going and living in that time, but maybe even allow us to learn and be able to speak and hear stories that we never heard of from our parents.
I've seen a lot of like Vietnamese war movies and I mean Gulf wars and stuff like that. But you're right. I never seen Korean War movies here.
And I'm not promoting like we should make films to show destruction and violence and to, champion war. It's not about that. It's about creating a legacy to honor the people that sacrificed their lives and to understand how hard it was and how devastating it was for them to go through. I mean, that was what it was like for me when I saw, Saving Private Ryan. It was a touching story, and it was very graphic because it made you feel right in that moment what D-Day was like when the soldiers stormed the beaches of Normandy. And I think that's the more important message that a war film should always do, is allow an audience to realize these people sacrificed their lives so that you could be where you are.
So I think it's really important to tell a story about that. Given your like personal nature of this story, have there been moments during the development of the Children of War that have surprised or moved you in ways that you didn't expect? I heard the message that you went to Nevada, collaboration or cooperation with the Korean veterans.
Definitely. I mean, there's so many. I don't want to list like all of them, but I think the three most important things was when we started developing this, I completely under budgeted what it would cost because I didn't have as much experience to understand how to execute it and what it's going to cost to do it. And mind you, we were coming off of a pandemic and my industry was completely shut down for the last 3 years. And even though it opened up, a lot of people have not been working. There's been a lot of difficulty in my industry. And so getting professionals to make an accurate budget for no pay is very difficult to do. So, that was one of the first surprising things that came, is just learning, educating, and understanding all the different things that I needed to put together to do that. So it was a surprise in that I was completely overwhelmed. I wasn't prepared for it. But number two, it was amazing how many organizations, whether it's Korean American or not, so excited about this project and wanted to see this happen. Not only for the Korean War veterans, but for Korean Americans. Almost all of us, we heard stories like me. Oh my gosh, I remember my mom when she told me they escaped North Korea. Oh my gosh, I remember my father when they told us like he saw his brother get killed during the war. His other friends got hit by artillery. There's so many stories that just immediately connected people to this project, and they were willing and wanting to see it. And that was so encouraging. So it gave me a lot of faith, a lot of passion, and a lot of conviction, because when you're doing something basically for no pay and trying to set it up, you can get discouraged when you have to, your family, you have to work your regular job, you have to pay bills. But all of the connections and the people we've met has more further confirmed, I think, this is going to happen. I think this is going to actually be done. And then when the Korean War Veterans Association came out, I just emailed them off of their website without any contact. I didn't know anybody there. The only person we met was David Penaflor. So across the United States, there's 70 chapters of the Korean War Veterans Association. So he's the president of the Oregon. Went down the list of all the emails of all the chapter presidents, and I just emailed every single one. Hi, my name's Arnold Chun. I'm doing this story about the Korean War from the perspective of children. It's inspired by my father's story. I would love to talk to you and see if you want to support us. Here's our website. Take a look at the promo. After a few days, there was not really any response. So I was a little bit like discouraged. David Penaflor in Oregon calls me on the phone. He's like, hey, Arnold, were you trying to contact the Korean War Veterans Association? I said, yeah. How did you know? Oh, the general secretary, they got your email and then they gave it to the president, and the president called me asking who you were. And so I told the president, oh my goodness, we met Arnold Chun, the director, in April when he came up to Oregon to present the project at a church, and we went to a Q&A session, and we totally believe in what he's doing. And the president goes, hey, do you think we can get him to come to our national conference in October to speak? I think it would be good for him to talk about the project to our veterans. I'm like, oh my gosh. So that just came out of nowhere. And it was things like that continued to happen. When I was in Korea doing patient scouting, and looking for the actors. I met a producer by the name of Young Seo. He works for a company called Voyager, and Voyager is a production services company. They basically help any foreign producers and foreign production companies coming into Korea to be able to film because they are able to provide a bilingual crew, all different departments. Young, I met him through my youngest brother. My youngest brother has been living in Korea for the last 14 years. He's a minister. And I asked my brother when I was there, hey, do you know anybody in Korean film industry? Like, I need to find a producer, like, cameraman, costume designer, makeup artist, catering department, camera rentals, location. I need all those things. So yeah, I know somebody. His name is Young. He's been in my church for about 12 years. And let me make an introduction to you. He's an amazing guy. Dear brother in the Lord. He was mentored by my brother in Bible study from his church. So I trusted, like, okay, this guy is a solid guy. But as I got to know him and I got to talk to him, we started sharing about our background. Young was trained by the same producer who trained me 21 years ago.
Oh, wow.
What are the chances of that?
Oh, my goodness.
So many things like this have been happening where I was shocked. I was blown away. Like, are you kidding me? We know the same producer and he trained you. Those kinds of things, Daniel, have been so encouraging. Just I can't say that's by chance. It's been blowing me away, and we've been having so many of those connections along the way. And so, yeah, it's been surprising.
Oh, wow. So the film has to be done.
I hope so. I mean,
yes.
Like everything that's happening, I don't want to say yes, guaranteed, because anything could happen, but it's showing signs of like, wow, I think this could really get done.
I mean, do you still looking for the actors or?
The smaller roles, yes, but we hired a casting director in Korea.
Oh, okay.
And we found the 4 children, the main 4 characters, we found them. Oh, they're incredible. So all the other characters, once we have our funding complete, then we'll start that process of filling out all the other smaller roles. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, nice.
If you have anybody you want to recommend, let me know.
Myself as an officer,
Korean
officer.
Okay, yeah, if you want to be in there,
Are
you okay with shaving your head though? Because they all had, buzz cuts back then.
I need to cut it, right? I don't mind. I mean, it was one of my dreams that I would be in one of the movies. I don't have to main actor. I can just be an extra, right? So I'm willing to do it. No problem. Hair grows back. Always. I mean, there are a lot of wars at this moment, right? In Ukraine and Israel. I mean, considering this kind of war situation going on in a global war, how do you see this film contributing to the broader conversation about war, survival, and hope?
I mean, that's a great question. So many people actually have told me that versus me even understanding it. Actually, I didn't really make that much of a connection until more people that I shared the story with told me, this is so relevant to what's happening right now. And so now the more I thought about it and the more I went to research and seeing almost an exact mirror of what's happened in the Korean War almost 75 years ago. And I think the trauma, unfortunately, that these children are going through, it's life lasting. When I look at my father, I think, some of the things that he dealt with as far as he was a very angry person for a long time. He carried with him a lot of anger and a lot of resentment, and also at the same time, a lot of anxiety. He is very much somebody who hates to be alone. I remember when we had the 94 earthquakes in Northridge, he first of all couldn't sleep inside, but he wanted all of us to sleep outside with him in a tent in the grass. And I couldn't understand why. It was January, it was freezing cold. I didn't want to do that, but it only occurred to me later on now, the trauma that he still carries. And so it's happening to these kids right now. We can't predict it, but we know that kind of trauma does unfortunately incite other kinds of violent attitudes and violent behaviors. Because when they see it, they're too young to normalize anything. They're too young to understand the ramifications of what's going on. And so if they become desensitized to it and seeing that it's normal, then they might be propagators of that kind of behavior in the future. My dad told me, like, one of the things that he saw on a regular basis when he was on the streets with his friends. So he ended up finding 5 or 4 other kids that were also orphaned. There was almost 100,000, more than 100,000 children that were orphaned during the war.
Yeah.
So these other four kids, because they also lost their parents too, or couldn't find their parents, they banded together like a little gangpe, gang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They would go around, and that's, what they did to survive. He said every morning or every few mornings, they always heard somebody shouting and something going on like in the distance. And when they would go, they watched public executions regularly, whether it was North Koreans killing South Korean people who didn't want to join the Communist Party. I just thought, I cannot believe my dad saw that. And it came to a point where he said they used to bet on who was going to get shot that day.
Oh, wow.
It was a game to them because they didn't understand they're barely 6, 7 years old. They can't understand the language. They don't know the terminology that older person or whoever it is that's saying. They just thought it was like a game. And is that happening right now?
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of exposure of violence happening to these children right now? And so if I can utilize this film in some way to make a voice and a movement to bring light to that situation, then that is one of the biggest purposes of this film, other than honoring the veterans.
Yeah. I mean, the war has to stop.
Yes, the war has to stop. I
totally agree with you. I totally agree with you that this movie has to be used to kind of stop the current wars going on in the world. And
yeah.
I mean, I really thank you for doing that,
Oh, thank you for just letting me share it with you guys, man.
I mean, how can people contribute to the fundraising? Is there what is the process?
There's a number of different ways. childrenofwarshortfilm.com, very simple. childrenofwarshortfilm.com.
Mm-hmm.
And right on that page, there's either GoFundMe link, there's either a contribution, you can use PayPal, the QR code there, you can even scan that to bring up a preferred way to pay through Zelle, or we made it as easy as possible, and they can even mail it in if they want. We've actually been getting quite a few support donations from veterans, and a lot of them at 80 and 90, they don't really use technology, so they've been mailing in checks. So the address for the production company is there. It is a tax deductible donation because we have a charity partner that's partnered with us, and it's Mixed Roots Foundation. And Mixed Roots Foundation advocates for Korean adoptees globally, and because they are a 501c3, donations that are made through their chapter for the funding of the film can earn a tax deductible donation. So whether that's important.
Wow, perfect match with the Mixed Roots.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like beyond financial support, or like, is there other way that people can help or spread the word?
Absolutely. Just sharing the project, whether it's through word of mouth, through family dinner, talking to your family friends, through your workplace, through the internet, if that's what you choose, social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, whatever it is. I think it's important more than just focusing on funds is sharing the story, because it could also open up dialogue and conversation to that person to want to learn more. Education to be the most important thing when it comes to this project, is that people are inspired, people learn, and that turns into more people learning and getting an awareness about this time period. This is the first thing going forward. I want to make sure that I set the bar very high, and that the cultural notions and the depictions historically are as accurate as I can make it. I'm not going to be 100%, but if I can get to 95, 99, then I've done my job.
Thank you for sharing that. I believe that this is going to be done. Also, I'm gonna spread the words to the people about the fundraising, about the movie. What are the next steps once the fundraising goal is met? Can you share the details of production timeline and the milestones you're aiming for?
Thankfully, because of Young, an amazing producer, his team, they were all nominated for Oscar because Past Lives, such an accomplished producer that he has all of the things that we need already set up. We already did the location scouting. We already found our cast. I already have the costume department set up. We have our camera department set up. So all of those things needed to be organized prior to moving forward and getting all the funding, so that we can present the case for whoever we talk to. Look at how prepared we are. The person that's going to be doing our visual special effects, they do currently the Mandalorian series on Disney Plus, Star Wars. They do all the special effects for that. Our trailer editor is David Kim out of New York. He cut the trailers for Pachinko, Minari, even Past Lives. So, we have such stellar people, and then including Tony Eldridge, the producer of the Equalizer franchise starring Denzel Washington. He's our executive producer. It has been unbelievable, the amount of talent that we've been attracting to this story. That top talent wants to do this. So next year, as you know, is the 75th anniversary. Yes. And we did get a possible inquiry of could you guys film and complete this before June 25th to be able to showcase it at a celebration. So if that's the case, that means we have to get our funding by at least January 2025. The timeline is quite tight, but everything has happened for a reason up to this point. So I believe that if it's meant to be done, then it will go forward. And so is the end of January is, I think, the absolute latest deadline to raise the entire funds we need to execute this.
So all the teams are ready, all the resources are ready, just the funds.
Just the funds.
Ready. Thank you for sharing the great story today. I'm also inspired by your story. I'm going to go into the fundraising website and then.
Oh, thank you. 너무너무 감사합니다. I mean,
by the way, do you also have Korean? You of course you have a Korean name, right?
Yeah, my Korean name is a little ancient from the old time.
Okay.
It's my Korean name. I'm 전효공 감독.
전효공 감독.
Yeah, 전효공.
Comfortable speaking Korean?
I don't use it enough where I can be fluent, but I try. If ever I speak to fluent Korean speakers, I try to make an effort because I want to make an effort to tell them I can understand a lot.
Yeah, try to say something in Korean to kind of promote the fundraising.
네, 여러분 감사합니다. 오늘은 우리 전쟁의 아이들 영화 같이 얘기하신데요. 좀 서포트 주시면 아주 너무 감사합니다.
Perfect. Yeah. Are you planning to go back to Korea or?
Yeah, if we get all the funding, we.
You get a funding and then. Okay, great. Yeah. I mean, thank you for having an interview with me. I always talk about the real estate, but this was the first time to do something different than real estate.
Well, we're talking about the real estate of Korean country. Oh yeah, the land. That's what we're talking about. Where this film took place is on the land of Korea. I really appreciate it, and I hope that all your listeners will be able to see this and that we'll be able to just thank the veterans for what they did because we would not be here without them.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that.